Okay, so what we're going to do first, I'm just going to screen share and we're going to go over just real quickly the email we sent out, the information in there about travel, some of the risks and some of our concerns and why those are concerns as you guys are thinking to travel outside of the US. We'll talk about some specific things. And then, of course, the main underlying thing is that things might change, right, at any minute. So let me screen share up here. Okay. All right. Make this big. Okay. So, again, this is just the email that we sent out to you all already. So hopefully you've read this. As an office, we're not going to tell you you can't travel. It's 100% up to you, but we want to make it very clear that there are some definite risks with traveling, let you know the best information that we have, and then allow you to make that decision for yourself. I will preface by saying having to get a visa is going to make it harder, and we're going to talk about those details there, but things to consider. So the first thing on there to consider is the US travel restrictions. These are nothing new. These are the COVID related restrictions that have been in place since really February or March for the most part. They just keep getting extended. And of course, those were put into place by the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, and the US government to try to just prevent people from coming in. At the time, it was countries that had COVID worse than the US. Now we know that the US has kind of hit that upward motion. But I think as COVID is fluid, those are going to keep continuing to change. So just be aware, we don't know when these will be lifted. I imagine they'll be in place for probably quite some time. Just be aware that you may not be allowed to return to the US if you go to these countries. So let me pull up, I'm going to stop sharing this screen. I am going to share the screen with the website, and that's the website that's there on the email we sent out to you guys. So this is when you go to that link, this is what you're going to see. Again, this is the coronavirus COVID-19 travelers prohibited from entry to the US. And so these are basically the countries that have a COVID-19 travel restriction right now. Fortunately, the countries listed here for the European Schengen area, the United Kingdom, and Republic of Ireland, there is an exception for student visa holders who have a valid visa already with them to allow them to come back into the US. If your visa is not valid, if you have to go in for a visa appointment, we found that it's hit or miss. Some consulates are letting students apply and giving them the visa. We have heard that some consulates might not be letting students apply for new visas. So that's something you definitely would want to check with the consulate that you would go to. But this list would be updated anytime there's a change. You can see here this was last updated September 14th, but there's not been any changes since then. September 14th is when they really finalized some of those exceptions, these certain family members and other individuals exception. If you are traveling to, or if you will be transiting through one of these countries, you would also be under the exception. So if you're, if you're traveling home and then your connecting flight comes back through London or through Germany, a lot of the places, a lot of our flights transit through there. Just know that when you try to enter the US and they see that you've been even just in the airport in one of these countries, that would, you'd have to fall under the exception. So as Jesse and I have been doing your exceptions and noting your travel and things like that, we're trying to get letters back out to you. So if you are traveling to or transiting through one of these countries, we have a form letter for you that you'll need to print and carry that basically has the exception. And the reason we're doing that is that not all airlines are aware of the exception, especially if they're not a US owned airline. And then not all border agents, we know that they're training, they pull people in and they do quick training and they may not be aware of all the exceptions and small rules for every visa type. So we want to have that, exception letter for you. The one I will also add to this is Canada and Mexico. I know we have some Canadian students on this list or on this session. I don't know if we have any students going to Mexico, but that's also sometimes a vacation spot. There is a travel restriction for Mexico and Canada as well coming into the US. But there is an exception for, again, for those students who are coming back to study. And so there is also a form letter. Generally the exception, or generally the ban is only for those traveling through a land border. So if you're driving across the border, if you fly, you shouldn't have a problem. However, we still want you to have the border exception letter. So as you know, once you get your signed I-20 back from us, if you're getting that, or you've done your notification survey, if you don't have those letters, just send me or Jesse an email and let us know, and we'll zip you back one of those form letters. We're trying to do that as we go, but we've gotten, I think there's about 30 requests that have come in for travel. So make sure that you have the form letter if you're going to any one of these countries or to Canada or Mexico. Now, China, Iran, and Brazil are different. There is no exception for China, Iran, or Brazil. So if you go to or through one of those countries, you cannot enter directly back into the United States. You have to be in a third country for at least 14 days. We advise 20 days. If you look at the winter break, it's only about 5 weeks. So you wouldn't get to spend much time there. If you, for example, are going to China, you are going to have to go to another country for somewhere more than 14 days before you come back into the US. Fortunately, most flights don't transit through those 3 countries, so that's not a problem if you're not intentionally going there. But I know we do have students from China and Brazil who may be wanting to travel. So if that's what you're thinking to do, you need to definitely chat with Jesse or I one-on-one so that we can talk to you about those risks and try to help you make a plan. Our students from Brazil have usually at the start of the fall went to Mexico for about 16 days and then came in, and that they were able to do that. We've had one student come in from China that was able to stay 14 or 15 days in another country and come in. But just know that that's a thing. If you go home to China, Iran, or Brazil, you cannot come directly back into the US, and you have to plan to be back by January 25th for the start of school. So that is that on those. Let me go back to the other page. And I think, and if you guys have questions and you want to put them in the chat, I will go back to those here in just a bit. Okay, so let's go back to this Word document. Okay, so that's these travel restrictions here. Visa appointments. So as you may recall, the US Department of State shut down all consulates in March. Starting on July 15th, they did what they called a phased reopening of consulates. So they basically allowed the consulates to make their own decisions about when they're open, how they're open, what visas they're doing, how they're doing them. And I will tell you, these change daily. It depends on COVID in the area. If a consulate determines that there's an outbreak or they're at risk, they will shut their doors, and it could be indefinitely. Some consulates are only taking F1 student or J1 student visa appointments. Some consulates are only taking 10 appointments a day. So there's lots of rules, and those rules are going to be determined by the individual consulate, not by an overarching rule. So this is where we would say, if you need to do a visa while you're gone, it is incredibly risky. I would venture to say don't travel. But again, I can't tell you not to. Just know that getting a visa appointment and having that visa appointment actually happen are pretty risky, on top of any other kind of risks for a visa appointment. Funding and time left on your program and all those kinds of things. So visa is very, very very risky. You need to go on and start looking at the individual consulate website for where you will plan to go. And make sure that they don't have any special rules. Make sure that they're open. Consulates are very, very rarely doing a third country application. So if you go home and your consulate is closed, a lot of times students might try to go to a third country. That's always kind of frowned upon. Right now, most consulates are not accepting visa applications for people who do not live in their country, unless there's a real special exception. So also keep that in mind. UW spring class schedule as of October 15th. The trustees approved our spring schedule. We will start classes on January 25th. That is a week later than originally intended. The reason being UW has decided not to have spring break in the spring for the same reason that we're going online starting at Thanksgiving this fall. They want to try to minimize our COVID exposure by not having students take off and go all over the country and world over spring break and then bring COVID potentially back to Wyoming. I will say that Wyoming right now is one of the top states in COVID spread. We're in a bad situation here now. I do know that there are states, if you're coming from Wyoming to their state, they will make you quarantine when you get there because they're looking at us and saying how bad our numbers are right now. So even travel within the US can kind of be weird with COVID right now. So just know that if you're going to travel, you need to be back before January 25th because that is when our classes are going to start. But don't plan on having travel over spring break. Just make sure you note your schedule that was updated. Situations continue to change, as I've mentioned. These travel restrictions, immigration rules, and exceptions. I think you all have maybe seen the document we've put on our website. I'll go to that here in just a bit. We don't know what the rules will be for the spring semester. As it is right now, students who went home over summer, if they decided to stay home or if they got stuck at home, as long as they were able to enroll full time, even though they were online, they were able to keep their CVIS record active. We don't know if that's going to be the case in the spring. Immigration has not given us the spring guidance yet. They have a lot going on right now. We don't anticipate that we will know spring rules until late November or maybe even mid-December. So right now we can't say what's going to happen. If you choose to go home over winter break and you get stuck at home for whatever reason, and you can't come back in the spring, you would obviously be able to still take classes online through UW. That's not a problem. Your immigration status, though, we may not be able to maintain the F1. We might have to end your CVIS. If you're planning to do CPT next year, that would impact your ability to do CPT because you'd have to be back for a full year before you could do that, as well as OPT. If we have to end your CVIS record over the winter and then you graduate in May, you would not be able to do OPT because you would not have been back in the US for the time you'd have to do OPT. So again, something to consider if you're getting close to graduation. We just don't know what those rules will be. Any other COVID related situations can change at any time. The US could change travel restrictions here. Wyoming could put restrictions into play. When we're talking about getting back for classes, we don't know yet if you'll have to COVID test when you get back. UW has not made that decision yet. I do know if you're here over the break and you are still on campus, living in the halls or being in the labs, UW is going to continue the regular on-campus surveillance and vault testing. But we don't know if you leave and come back, we don't know if there will be a mandatory quarantine period or if there will be mandatory vault testing. So I would say you probably should plan to be back by January 11th because that gives you 14 days before classes start. If you do have to do a 14-day quarantine when you return. For athletics, I know that in the fall, athletics did a mandatory 14-day quarantine for their incoming athletes. I don't know if they're doing that in the spring or not heard. I imagine they might. So make sure that you are checking with people to make sure you're back in time, just in case we need to do a quarantine. Let's see, what else do we have in here? Again, we just don't know. We'll communicate with you as we have information. So the two ways we're going to do that. One is just through direct email, either through the ISS weekly newsletter or through direct emails to you. I guarantee when we get the spring guidance, you will get an email with detailed information in your UW email account. So if you go, make sure you're checking your UW email account while you're gone for any kind of updates. Because when you travel, you're doing the survey, we can also target you by country. So if something comes out specifically for people in or going to France, for example, we could pull everybody out who said they're going to be in France and we could send that email specifically to them. And then we would also be sending out a larger email in case people are transiting through France on their way back, for example. And then just process-wise, for those who need a travel signature, remember your travel signature that is on the back of your I-20 is only valid for 1 calendar year. So if we signed that last winter break and haven't signed it since, you need to get a new signature. Because our office is still locked down and closed, we're not taking walk-ins. We don't want you to bring your old I-20 as we normally would. When you fill out the survey, you're going to tell us you need a new signature. We'll create a new I-20, we'll sign everything for you, and then we'll send you a link where you can sign up for a time to come to our office on Tuesday or Thursday and pick that up. So we are getting short on time. If you've not done that survey, please do it right away. You can find a link to that on our website. If you have a travel signature already, let's say that you have, we signed it over spring break last spring or the summer, we still need to know that you're leaving. So please do the survey. And in the question where it asks if you need a signature, you'll just say, no, you don't need a signature. And then we will just, like I said, we're trying to follow up and make sure we get you the appropriate letters that you need to travel to add to your I-20. And then we also know where our students are. UW is trying very hard to kind of track where students are moving, where you're going to be, when you're coming back, so that they could set up plans for our campus. And since international students are the bulk of people who are traveling outside of the US, it's a little easier for us to get them information. So we need you to do that survey. So also share with your friends, looking at you Canadians mostly, because you guys tend to travel more than anyone else. But let your friends know, even if they already have a signature, they still need to fill out our survey and let us know they're traveling. That also is going to help us make sure you all get back in the spring. It asks there when you're coming back, and if you come back and haven't checked in with us, you're probably going to be getting an email asking you if you made it back, so we can try to help you head off any problems that you might incur coming back. Let's see. Oh, we do have a note in here. If you're outside of the US, if you've already left Laramie or the US and just forgot to do this process, we can mail to you. We'd rather not mail because mail is just taking a lot of time. And if you want us to do regular USPS mail, we are actually not mailing outside the country. So if you are outside of the US and need a signature on an I-20, we actually will have you pay FedEx or UPS to do that. And then the note down here, please don't request a signature just in case. In a normal year, we might have students come in and say, well, I might go home, I might not, I don't know, but I might leave like right after Christmas while you guys are closed. We can't do that this year because of COVID, because of the tracking. We need to know who's here and who's not. So we ask that you don't do a just in case signature. If we sign for you, we are going to assume you left the US. And we're going to report it as such. So if you do that and then you change your mind and don't go, drop us an email and just say, hey, I did a survey, but I decided not to go home. I'll be in Laramie, and we'll make a note in your file. That way we're also not chasing you down in January to make sure you made it back. It'll save us all a little bit of time. Okay, so that is that. I want to go real quickly. I did not pull this up in advance. I apologize. So on our website, if you haven't been there, here's the book now where you can book an individual appointment, phone or Zoom with us. Here is that winter travel, misnamed, not just a travel signature survey, but the notification as well. Even if you don't need a signature, this is the survey you need to do. Okay. If you scroll down here a little farther to this information. Yeah, Jesse, what?
You just need to switch your screen. We still got the Word document.
Oh, sorry. I didn't re-screen share, did I? Oh, no. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
As much as we're Zooming right now, you would think that...
It's so easy to do, though.
We get in the Zoom fog. Okay, let me go back to the top. Okay, so here's the book now button. Here is the winter travel. Again, it's not just a signature. This is a notification. So even if you have a signature, please still do the same. It's the same survey. So just fill that out. Down here a little farther in this information, if you guys have not been watching this, please do tune into this section. We have, these are Google documents that we update. Just updated these here at the end of October. So current and continuing international students. Like I said, this is a Google document that I'm updating regularly for you. You will see on here the last day that the document was updated. And over here, you'll see all the things that we have in this. So This pertains to fall 20, spring 21 in our current model for UW. So as it says, please don't rely on information from other online sources, from friends attending other schools, especially when we get that guidance for spring about enrollment and all that stuff, because depending on how your school is teaching, depending on how the rules apply, it can be very different from school to school. So always check here for your information. So this is where we'll be updating over the winter break for you guys about the spring when we get the guidance. You can always refer to this. Each section has an updated date, so you can see when it was updated. So this is information we know right now about the spring semester for people who are staying in the US. For students who are outside of the US, generally these are for people who have been attending online from home over the fall, but anyone who's outside of the US coming back in, that'll be here. We have a little bit about the visa applications, a little more about traveling to the US. So again, a list of those countries, some information about the exceptions. Here's a blurb about Canada and Mexico, which was not in that email, but we talked about that. That's pretty easy, and things to consider. Late arrival and study online from home, we'll update that when we know more. We sent this out, but class registration and funding and scholarships for the spring. If you did not read that information, please do. We are advising that you enroll for spring just as you would if there were no exceptions. Full-time, undergraduates in at least 9 credits on campus, graduate students in at least 6 credits on campus. If that's not possible, do the best you can and sit tight. I honestly think we'll see some exceptions in the spring, but again, we won't know that until late November, December. And we don't want you all to assume you can be online only in spring and then have to scramble to find on-campus classes. So do the best you can there. And then we do have a general FAQ. Again, we've noted we don't have guidance yet. So as we do have guidance, we'll go through and update these, but these are going to answer a lot of your questions. Okay. So there's that. I'm going to jump over here into the chat box and see what kind of questions we've got over here. Okay, so someone, let's see, Sophie filled out the survey. How can you get the printed version as proof? So if you filled out the survey and said you needed a new signature, as soon as Jesse or I do that, and I'm working on those today, hopefully I'll get them done today or tomorrow. So once I have a new I-20 for you, or Jesse, we're going to send you an email. If you're in Laramie, you'll get a link to actually come to schedule a pickup at our office. Those are done on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If that's a problem, we can try to schedule a special pickup. We are in the office only 1 day a week each. So Thursday is my day here. We're just trying to stay out of the office and work mostly remotely, but we will have someone here every day. So hopefully we'll be able to accommodate you, but we try to have you scheduled just in that short time period. We still aren't letting people in the office, so we'll meet you at the door. It's a 10-minute window to come. Please be on time. If you are 10 minutes late, we're going to skip your appointment because the next people are already coming in, and we're trying to minimize, just spreading germs and things coming and going. Keep in mind when you come to get something from us, we are no longer in the Cheney International Center. We've sent this out, but students still miss it. They temporarily moved us to the UW Alumni House. It is on the corner of 14th Street and Grand Avenue. So just a block over from the backside of Co-Library, 2 blocks down from, or block and a half down from the College of Business. But still our doors are locked. We can't take walk-ins. You have to schedule to do a pickup, and we're not meeting with students in the office. We're still doing that all on Zoom. But when you come to the building, there's the nice front porch, but you're actually going to go just down from the front porch. There's some glass doors and there's a sign for you to knock if we don't see you, and we'll have that for you there. If you're not in Laramie, we'll mail it to you, USPS in the US, if you've already left. If you've already left the US, you're going to get a link to pay for shipping so that we can get you the updated I-20 or DS 2019. If you have that, but you need the form letter to carry with you, we'll do that via email. So if give us till the end of tomorrow. Like I said, I'm still finishing up my big load that we got this week. Jesse and I are doing these as they come in. We're trying to. So If you haven't gotten anything back from us by the end of the day tomorrow, maybe drop an email to the uwglobal@uwyo.edu and let us know what you're missing. And Jesse and I will either email you the form letter if you're missing it, or we will make sure that we get that I-20 signed and get you a link to get that from us.
So whenever our I-20 is updated, we get an email?
Yes. And
Okay.
Sophie, you're in my half of the alphabet, and I'm working on those today and tomorrow.
Okay.
So you'll get an email from me. Will you still be in town next Tuesday, the 10th?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to get an email from me today or tomorrow. We'll have pickups next Tuesday and Thursday. And so there will be a link, and it's this little calendar that you click on the calendar and you pick your day and time to come in. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Are we allowed to enter after January 25th? Yes and no. One, classes start on January 25th, and your faculty does not have to excuse you if you arrive late. So again, we don't know exactly what the exceptions will be for UW. This past fall semester, our administration, our provost, graduate education director, and our president were very, very supportive of students who were late, not by choice, right? So don't just plan to come back February 10th. You need to plan to be here by the start of school. Now, if students get home and you have administrative processing and your visa's delayed, or your flights get canceled, or there's a travel restriction, if situations come up, I hope that the UW administration will be as supportive and will ask our faculty to allow students to arrive late. Again, this is all going to depend on the decisions made by immigration and on the decisions made by UW. If we have as many online courses, or if they are encouraging faculty to be as lenient as they were in the fall, then hopefully you'd be able to arrive late if you have to and be able to join in class. They may not make that exception. And again, plan to be back, I would say by January 11th, in case you have to quarantine for 14 days. Do not plan on purpose to come back late, because UW could say, faculty, you have to let students come in late and make up work if it was outside of their control. If you bought a ticket for February 10th, that was within your control. You need to make those plans and those decisions before you go home. Let's see. So again, let's see. Haven't heard anything about your I-20. Again, give us to the end of the week. Like I said, I am just issuing I-20. So if your last name is in K through Z, you're in my stack, and I haven't done it yet. So
sorry, Maria. When I filled my survey, I indicated that I have a dependent that who will travel with me. In this case, I will receive that new I-20 for both me and my dependent.
Yes. If you have dependents on your record, anytime we issue a new I-20 for you, we will also issue for your dependent, even if they're not traveling with you. We're still going to issue a new one for both, so that all of your I-20s match and they were all done on the same day. And that's okay. If they don't travel, that's fine, but then you'll have them. So
okay, thank you.
Okay, yep. Let's see here. So those are the dependent questions. Again, got the new I-20, so we got that answered. How do we get a new I-20 if we study online out of the US for the semester of fall? Okay, Pen, you must be in China. Are you in China? I don't know if he's still with us.
Yes, I am.
Oh, there he is. What time is it there?
2:30 a.m.
2 a.m. You look really awake for it being 2 a.m. Thank you for getting up and joining us at 2 a.m. So do you have a valid I-20 already, like from previous when you were here before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so we maintained your status. If you're outside of the US and we've been maintaining your CVIS record and you're still valid in the system, we probably need to send you a new I-20 with a signature. If that's the situation, if you're outside of the US and we've not issued you a new I-20 for spring arrival with a new signature on the back since before summer, let us know. And Peng, you're gonna run into the same problem coming in from China, where you're gonna need to go somewhere else for at least 14 days before you come into the US. So I would say go online, make an appointment with either me or Jesse for phone or Zoom so that we can meet with you one-on-one and talk about your travel dates and make sure that we get all the details to you you'll need. You'll need that form letter. We would like to get an original I-20 into your hands. If you're outside of the US, over this year, we've been allowed to give you an emailed scanned I-20 that you are able to print out. We assume that this will still be allowed. However, we're hearing from our colleagues around the country that some consulates and some borders, some entry places are requiring you to have the paper original signed I-20, not a printout of a signature. Again, they're not supposed to be doing that. So what we're trying to do, since we have until the middle of January, we're trying to get paper into your hands. So if you're outside the US and need a new I-20, get in touch with Jesse or I individually. We will try to get the new I-20 and everything done. We'll work with you to get it shipped out to get paper into your hand. If it becomes a last minute thing or something like that, we can do email. We're hoping they will still honor those email scans. Again, this is something we might know more about later in November or December when they make those updates. So just kind of keep that in mind, but get in touch with us. If you're outside of the US, get in touch with me or Jesse individually, and we'll go over your individual situation and make sure you have what you need.
Okay.
Let's see, if plans change after you take the survey, should you retake it or just email? I think the survey will only let you take it one time. We did that on purpose so that we wouldn't get crossed up with which survey was first. So if your plans change, if you decide not to go, if your dates significantly change, if your location changes, anything like that, do just send an email to that uwglobal@uio.edu. And then Jesse or I, whichever one of us did your documents, will grab that out for you and we'll update. If we need to get you different documentation, we'll work with you through email to do that. So do just send us an email if your plans change. If you decide not to travel, let us know and we'll mark you off of our list and note that you decided not to travel. If you're graduating this semester, so if you're graduating in December, no, you do not need a signature. The signature is only if you're leaving the US and then coming back in to study. So if you're graduating and going home and not coming back, you don't need a signature. You don't need anything from us. But we will be in touch to confirm your graduation and end your CVIS record. Know that you have 60 days after graduation. So you have until February 9th to either leave the US or apply for OPT or let us know you've started a new degree program so we can update your CVIS record. Let's see, Federico got a new I-20 this summer, has nothing in the remarks section. Yeah, the remarks, the remarks are interesting. And this is a constant conversation. Because things are changing quickly and over the summer, you know, originally we had issued I-20s. At some point we were putting remarks that we were going to be hybrid and students would not be allowed to be online only. Well, then that changed because the July 6th guidance got rescinded. So then you were allowed to be online only. So most schools have stopped putting remarks in the remarks section at this point. When the spring guidance comes out, it may advise us to put some kind of remark in there, in which case we would do that. And then we would work with you to get a new I-20 to you either by paper or by email if we don't have time for real mail. So we'll kind of do those on the fly as we get new information. Right now, you're not required to have anything in the remarks section. There's nothing requiring that. Some schools are putting remarks in, some schools aren't. For some schools, it depends on what their model is. If a student has been in status, if they've been online. So that's up to the individual school to do that however they want with remarks. So I would say at this point, Federico, you don't have to have an I-20 with remarks. But if anything changes and you do, and we have a list of everyone who's outside the country right now, you will be getting an email saying, hey, before you come back, you need an updated I-20 with remarks, and we'll get those to you. So stay tuned on that.
Okay.
And then let's see, Emma, you have an updated I-20 that we emailed because you stayed in Canada this fall. It depends. Yeah, I mean, that would still be valid for the winter. If we emailed that to you over the summer, and we've maintained your status in CVIS, you've been enrolled, you did the CVIS survey, we've maintained your status, that I-20 is still valid. Again, we'd like you to have paper in your hand. So if we emailed you an I-20, there is a printed paper version on our end. We never email only an I-20, there's always a printout. So if we've not sent that to you, that's here in our office still. So I would say, let's work to get that to you. Now you might want to hold off and wait just a bit, so that we can see if we're going to have to add, say, remarks before you come back in the spring. There's no point in us sending the I-20 now and then having to send another one. If you're in Canada, that mail, we are doing regular USPS mail to Canada. It's a little slower than usual, but it's not terribly slow. So I think we have time, if you're in Canada, to wait out and see what happens. And then we can get that paper one to you, especially if you're driving. I think it's really important to have the paper version. But again, we can see when the fall guidance or the spring guidance comes out, we can see if there's anything special in there that we would need to change for those of you that are outside the country. And again, we have a list of all of you who are current students who are outside of the US for the fall semester. And so you may be getting emails targeted at you specifically because you're a current student outside for the fall, which is going to be different maybe than our students who have never been in the US but are online from home. So we have a lot of different subgroups of students that we're sending targeted information out to right now. Okay, I'm caught up in the chat. We got about 20 minutes left. Anybody else have questions? If you want to put them in the chat, you can do that. If you wanted to just speak them out loud, turn on your mic, you can do that too. That's fine.
So just making sure, since I'm outside of the US, I still have to do the survey as if I were traveling out?
No, if you're already outside of the US, we already have you on the list of students that are outside of the US. Yeah, so the survey is just for students who are here but are leaving over the winter break. For Pun,
Okay,
for Federico, for you guys that are already out, Emma, you guys are already on a list.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm on a list, great.
Yep, you're on a list. You're on our fall outside the US list. We just need to touch base with you all. You know, once you know you're coming back for spring, touch base with us individually so we can make sure you have the right documents with the right signature, with the right comments, with the right form letters, and we'll get you back in to the US. We may be getting you guys letters verifying that even though you were outside of the US, you did maintain full-time enrollment and you maintained your CVIS record, that type of thing, so that the border agent won't stop you because you've been gone for 5 months, because that is an exception as well. Normally, if you're outside of the US for 5 months or more, you have to have a new CVIS record with a new number, but that is an exception because of COVID. So we will likely be sending you guys a form letter if you're outside the US over the break, explaining that you're allowed to be back in the US without a new CVIS record.
Okay, I'll just stay put for now then.
Yeah, hang in there. Hang in there and check your email often. What else? Any other questions? Give a couple seconds for you guys to think of it or type something in it. Like I said, if you don't know how to use the chat, you click on chat at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you want, right now, everyone's just been sending the questions to everyone. If you want to send a question just to me, so not everyone else can see it, I would be glad to answer it without using your name. In the box where you type, there's a to field, and right now it probably says everyone. If you click on the arrow, you can go in there and you can pick, you should be able to pick just my name, and then it will say sending to, and it'll have my name. When you type in there, I will be the only one who can see that. So if you have a question that you want to have answered in this session, but you don't want everyone to see you ask it, you can do that. Or you can always just send us email.
Yeah, Maria, I have a question in the chat. I think you haven't seen it.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Yep, it's just at the bottom. Okay. Implications of an F1 student transiting through Europe. Yeah, so if you transit through Europe, it's no different than if you went to Europe for the break. You have still been in Europe. And even if you fly from wherever you're coming from, you land in Europe, even if you don't get off the airplane and then you take off and come to the US, you have been in Europe and you are subject to that COVID travel restriction. So what we would do is we would just give you that form letter that you would carry, saying that anybody who's an F1 or J1 student visa holder is allowed to enter from those countries. So as long as it's not Brazil, China, or Iran. So if it's the European, like Schengen area, like I said, a lot of people transit through Germany, through London, places like that. So we would just give you the form letter and they should not have any problem letting you in. I think the biggest problem that we see is the airline, because the airline is going to want to make sure that when you get to the US, they will let you in. If you get to the US and the US border agents will not let you enter the US, it's the responsibility of the airline to take you back where you came from. And they don't want to have to give you a free plane ride. So you'll notice your airlines are checking all these things. This is where you might have some trouble, because if it's a US owned airline, they're more likely to know all these little exceptions. If it's a non-US owned airline, they're less likely to know these exceptions. And so that's one reason also we provide you with the form letter, because it has the official, like the website, the official docket numbers and all the things for the exceptions. So check ahead with your airlines as well to make sure there's not going to be a problem with you, having a layover, say in London, and then coming into the US. You'll have that letter saying you're allowed to enter from London to the US. One thing I was going to mention, I don't know if we have anyone on here going to China, coming from, but if anybody is going to China, I do know that China specifically, and Turkey actually has this restriction as well, as does, I think there's one other country that I'm aware of. They have rules for people coming into the country. China, for example, requires that people coming into China have 2 COVID tests within 48 hours of their departure from the US, I believe it is. One has to be an antibody test and one is the regular active COVID test. And so make sure as well that if you're flying home to your country, make sure that you know the rules on that end. So you've done anything you need to do to go there. And also for any countries you might transit through. So if you're coming back through Europe and you're going to have a layover, let's say in Paris, make sure that there's no rule in Paris that would keep you from getting off the plane there. You may have to have a COVID test or some documentation. So make sure that you're checking not only the US rules for your flight back, but your flights home and everywhere in between. Make sure you're checking that they don't have some other rules and things that you'll have to present documentation for.
Okay, thank you. And can you describe the form letter in a bit more detail? Because I think I have something like that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can actually, give me just 1 second here and I will pull that letter up. I will show you guys these letters. Okay, let's see here. So here's the Europe one, since this is going to be the most common. Let me pull this one up for you guys and actually remember to screen share it. Where is it? Here it is. Okay. So here, for example, here's the form letter that we send out for Europe. And so it's just on our letterhead. It's the exception for the Schengen area, United Kingdom and Ireland for F1 student visa holders. Same for J1. I don't know if we have any J1s on this Zoom, but we could tailor this for you if you're a J1. So it talks about how on July 16th, Department of State posted that there's this exception. It gives the numbers of the proclamations that were the original restriction proclamations. And then it states here that students traveling from the Schengen area, UK and Ireland, so even if you've stopped over, you're still traveling from there to here, with F1 and M1 visas do not need to seek a national interest exception. Other people coming have to go to the consulate and ask for a national interest exception and qualify for that. So you as students do not have to do that. So this we've copied directly from their order. Again, we've noted it shortened to just apply to you as students. The Department of State posting does not allow an exception for students who have been in Iran, China, or Brazil. This has also been posted on the U.S. consulate website and distributed to congressional offices. Oh yeah, we need to update this to spring, but it talks about our model as well. So that we have, it tells them that we're hybrid. Some of your classes are going to be online, some will be on campus. And again, this letter might change just slightly depending on what the spring guidance is. If spring guidance comes out and says there are no exceptions, that you have to be on campus for at least 9 or 6 credits and all those things, we would tweak this letter to state that UW has a hybrid model with on-campus classes. And in here we would say, students will be required to take at least X number of classes online. So we would update this to whatever the guidance is. So we may have to send you an updated letter over the break that you would print. But generally, this is what all those letters look like this. Our letterhead, it addresses what the order is or the exception, the actual text from the order, so they can see that officially, and then we've put something at the bottom about how the UW plan applies to whatever that form letter is. There is a form letter for having a printed copy of the I-20. Let me pull that one up real quick. Let's see. Is this the one I want? Nope. There it is. Okay. So this one, if we've emailed you an I-20, we've also probably sent you this letter, which basically came from a Q&A or an FAQ on the SCVP with the guidance saying that you're allowed to carry a printed version. You can't have it like on your device, but you're allowed to have a printed version of an originally scanned signed I-20. You can carry printed copies of the Form I-20. This would still be valid at this point. And so if we cannot get you paper, if you're outside of the US already, or you've been outside the US, we cannot get you paper, we would have you print the I-20 and we would make sure that you have this letter as well to carry with you. So if someone says that's not an original I-20, you can show them this and say, this is what my school sent me. The Department of State and CBP has made an exception, as long as this is still in effect. And again, we're hearing that some consulates are not accepting printed copies. And I think our liaisons in our professional organization are working with the Department of State to reconfirm that this is still valid, and then to make sure that the Department of State is aware that those consulates are trying to tell students they have to have the original. So hopefully consulates will stop doing that. Okay. What else? Nothing else? You guys are good? Okay, well, we can end a little early. I know some people have already dropped off the session, so we're going to end that a little early. Again, I'm going to repost this session is on our will be on our website. Jesse has already posted his session from last Thursday. And then if there's questions, email UW Global, email me, email Jesse, use the book now button to make a Zoom or phone appointment with us. And just, check in, let us know what your plans are, if they change. Those of you that are outside the US, keep watching email. We will update you all as we know. And everybody, make sure you check your email as close to daily as possible while you're gone, so we can update you with anything that changes over the break. Okay? All right.